Good morning, everybody. Grand Rising to you. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your co-host, Trey Holiday, and it's so great to be back in the studio with my co-host, Big O. What's up, Big O?
Good afternoon. Well, good morning, I guess. I'm getting ahead of myself. Good morning, Trey Holiday. It's good to have you back on set.
Right on.
It's good to be here. You looking great.
Yeah, you too, man. It's great to be back. Yeah. Missed you guys.
Missed you too. The public didn't miss much yesterday, though. Definitely a lively show, to say the least, with Mike Davis of the South Seattle Emerald. Actually, me and Mike, we got a show that's probably going to come on this Sunday. It's called The District, and it's been in planning for a while, where it's like we're highlighting what's going on in Seattle Districts 2 and Districts 3. That's the Central District and the South End, as well as bringing some of Skyway, and following up with all the elected officials in those districts to see like who's being accountable and who's not, and, what initiatives they're pushing, what they might need public support for, and some everything else. So, but Mike Davis, he brought it yesterday. Want to take a second right now to invite you to tag and share this stream. Tag and share the Morning Update Show with friends and family, coworkers, people in different ideologies that might appreciate culturally relevant content, news, and information. I think I got a sheet. You handed me something over here. Fantastic. Thank you. And let me slide this on down. Before we get into it today, Trey Holiday, there's a few things here. First thing is that these we got some flowers the other day, and they actually arrived on Valentine's, right before Valentine's Day. So I made the assumption that they were for Valentine's, and they had your name on them. And I got nosy yesterday and opened the card. I was like, man, who's sending Trey Holiday these flowers? And it turns out that this was actually a viewer, and it says, "Your family is in my prayers at this difficult time." From a Converge viewer, Jennifer Goodwin.
Wow.
So want to say thank you, Jennifer Goodwin, for the flowers and for keeping Converge Media in your thoughts. It's very kind of you and really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Jennifer Goodwin. I was going to be looking at that card today as soon as I got in studio. So thank you so much for the love, and for all of you that have been sending so many loves and positive vibes and amazing messages to my Facebook, to my phone. I mean, really, it's about the support of our community. And we're so appreciative here. That's beautiful. Thank you, Jennifer.
Right. Another thing I want to bring to everybody's attention. I got this from the Northwest African American Museum. Tonight at 6:00, there's going to be a candlelight vigil there at Jimi Hendrix Park, 2300 South Massachusetts Street here in Seattle. That's tonight at 6:00 at Jimi Hendrix Park. This is in memoriam, a community candlelight vigil. And this is being put on by NAM, and I saw the program that's there. There's a lot of different people from community groups. I know we always try to say the word community. It's like the most overused word ever. But there is a wide, like Davita Briscoe speaking, Winona Hague, Isaiah Anderson, Toria Beach, Deontay Damper, and Reverend Walden, some other people, a tribute, poem, different words from family, closing remarks. So tonight, 6:00, Northwest African American Museum, Jimi Hendrix Park.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Again, you're right. I mean, it's because we come from such a community perspective that the word is used a lot. But honestly, bringing together those folks and making sure that together we're finding ways to be in solidarity, to heal. That's a beautiful thing.
Right, and I wanted to take this opportunity right here as well. Is it looking at yesterday's show? And we had this discussion because the Black Brilliance did their research, and Black Brilliance, when we talked about this a week ago, they had sent a letter, basically an open letter to the public. But then also yesterday, the 14th, Black Lives Matter Seattle King County had sent a letter to the A. Philip Randolph Institute, and I think that in the conversation yesterday, it's easy to maybe for a viewer to confuse the two. And what I was talking about was a letter that Black Lives Matter Seattle King County sent to the A. Philip Randolph Institute saying that they were pulling out of African American Legislative Day because of an issue that they had with King County Equity Now. I was not, because Black Brilliance Research also did a report there. You know, I talked to Sean Glaze. And also, when I need to point this out to be on a few things, is that Black Brilliance did put out an open letter a week ago. They're very clear in that letter that they're, you know, very respectful and appreciate this KCN coalition and all the people working there and everything else. And they said that their issues were very targeted, right? And they were very intentional in their letter in saying it. Whether you agree or disagree, it was the intentionality of it. Then we had another letter over here that, yeah, it very much was not. And, you know, and kind of as a blanket statement. And I think it's important because people really look to this platform and to me and to what I say. And I always say that, like, man, if I don't quite get it right, I can come over here, I can say something. I'm never too big or whatever. So I just want to be clear that yesterday in my conversation here, I was not speaking to the Black Brilliance Research open letter that they sent last week. We were speaking, or at least I was speaking, about this letter that Black Lives Matter Seattle King County sent to A. Philip Randolph Institute. And another thing as well is I think that in reporting on this, we've kind of put people on the same, you know, what Black Brilliance Research, these are researchers. King County Equity now is, for at least in my terms, a lobbying organization. So you've got researchers over here and you've got people who are, you know, lobbying social change and some of everything else. And, you know, I don't think that for me to sit here and be like, oh, this guy, you know, it's two different kinds of things. And so the best thing that I can always do is try to clarify and use this platform to do so.
I think that's a great clarification, because you're right. There's a lot of things out there that are a bit confusing. And I think in terms of us having a great discussion, it was great to see so many of our audience members, you know, chiming in and talking about some of the history. So thanks for that clarification. It's great for the people.
Yeah, no, I mean, I always want people to have the best. You know, I love you know, I don't want in this community to fight. It's a figure of speech, but I love a fair fight. You know what I'm saying? And that's why people rock with us, because we're fair, you know, and I don't like, you know, murkiness, things like that, so whatever. And so, you know, anything I can do, I'll always do it. Before we jump into the headlines here today, Trey Holiday, I wanted to bring this up. This just came out over from the Seattle Times. And, man, I just want to bring this up here real quick. Downtown Nordstrom display windows valued at more than $50,000 each smashed on Sunday. And so I guess, you know, they're just bringing this out right now. And bringing this up with Nordstrom, people are like, why are you talking about Nordstrom's? It's this, that, things get broke out of everything else, is because depending upon where you're at in the timeline of Seattle, you know, it depends how maybe you come into the store. Maybe a lot of people new here and things like that. Like, oh, Nordstrom's are capitalists, and this, which they are. Of course, they're in business. You know what I'm saying? It's big business, everything else. But if you grew up in Seattle, then you know that Nordstrom's was one of the first stores downtown to actually have Black people on the floor. You know what I'm saying? Remember, there was other stores. There was some big dogs in town. There was Frederick and Nielsen, and there was the Bon Marché. But Nordstrom's is where you could go and find a Black sales agent that looked like you. Nordstrom's was ahead of the curve on that as far as supporting the Black community and Black issues and everything else. Same with the LGBTQ. Nordstrom's way ahead of the curve, especially compared to the other stores that were in the city. Frederick and Nielsen's and the Bon Marché. Macy's later on bought the Bon Marché and, of course, turned it to Macy's, which is no longer there. The Nordstrom family, I believe they owned the Seahawks for a while. And instead of selling the team to someone out of town, they figured out how to keep them in town. So for people who have a long timeline with Nordstrom's, look at like this right here a bit differently. Like they've been intentional about hiring Black people, Black designers, this and that, way before protests in the streets and everything else. It's because the Nordstrom family was like, man, this is the right thing to do. So, I mean, it was kind of crazy just to see this there. All these windows, they're busted out.
Wow. I mean, again, I think that you're right in terms of a lot of people not having that real history and looking at any of these institutions as the same, putting them at the same level. But yeah, I agree. Nordstrom was where my grandma took us when she wanted to do a little bit of splurging on us. I mean, she was very intentional about going to Nordstrom and not to a lot of the other spaces. So you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, I mean, man, Nordstrom was with the program years before people had to put pressure to put these other companies to get with the program. They've been with the program for a long time, and that's what I'm saying is that people who are from here, Seattle people, you know this timeline and you know what's up. So, I just wanted to bring that to people's attention as to what occurred down there. Man, something else here. There's a few things that we didn't get to the last few days because it's just been so much going on. And do I have it in here? I need to upload it. But one of the things that actually happened is actually, let me go to one of these headlines here. We've got a pretty good one here, and then we'll up. Here we go, and we'll upload everything else. So what? This is what I talked about here. Let me find this article, dig into it real quick. Seattle Fire Department employee arrested after threats to council member. This from the Capitol Hill Seattle blog and by our buddy over there, Justin Carter. And so, the breakdown on this one?
Oh man, this is a tough one right here.
No, it's not even tough. I mean, I'll tell you. This is what happened here, right? Is that basically somebody? It's like they've been arrested here. Andrew Finseth got arrested here. Investigation of felony harassment, second-degree identity theft, and first-degree computer trespass. And Seattle Police Department went down there right around the corner, 4th Avenue, and arrested this individual here for making threats against Councilmember Sawant.
Yeah, and he was a member of the fire department.
Definitely a city employee. Yeah, wow. I believe he was a member of the fire department. And yeah, we got Chief Scoggins a video from him in the show. I don't think that's an indictment on the fire department. You know what I'm saying? They got 1,000, 2,000 employees. The thing is with this right here is my thoughts on it, at least, is that I'm glad, first of all, let me put this out here. I'm glad that someone was threatening the council member and, an investigation pursued and they've been arrested and we'll see what happens, right? In court. The council member used her platform, which is council member of District 3, to apply pressure and awareness on the Seattle Police Department to make sure that whoever was sending threats to the council member was arrested. We saw that. It's like Sawant came out, she used her Twitter, and she said a few things like, hey, I'm being harassed and everything else. So I want to be clear. Nothing I have to say right here has anything to do with ideology, political beliefs, or anything else. I'm going to put that to the side. But what I want to say right here is this. It's Councilmember Shama Sawant. We've now seen that you are very effective in using your social media to bring swift justice to yourself. I please ask you to use your platform to encourage Seattle Police Department to reach out to members, constituents in your district, District 3, on all these unsolved murders that are out there. There's many unsolved murders in District 3. And as we've seen right here, you're able to use your social media and your platform as a council member to escalate. And you were able to escalate around this threat that was presented to you. And everybody takes this threat seriously. There's people that have been murdered in your district. Murdered. So maybe you can also as well use your platform as a council member to not only encourage the Seattle Police Department to maybe have more discussion with these parents. Some of these parents said they haven't heard from SPD, but also to see how you can engage community in your district where these murders are occurring. Because we see that when there is a threat to you, which we all take seriously, you have no problem using your platform to escalate it. Ma'am, I'm asking you to use your platform to please escalate these unsolved murders that are in your district.
You know what? I agree 100%. Again, it goes back to the point of politicians in the first place and of our elected officials is to really represent for your constituents. And I agree with Omari here that the seriousness of the threats, I'm glad that this person has been apprehended, that they've been arrested. Now we will be able to follow the case. But ultimately, too, I want to say that one of the things that we've talked about here on this platform is, threats to our elected officials really just does not stand. Ultimately, we've talked about it. We saw how folks came up, for Councilmember Juarez. We've seen, folks say, hey, not on our turf. You can't be threatening our council members. And I think that that's also another voice of the constituents. Another thing I really want to say about this is that it doesn't have anything to do with Chief Scoggins or the fire department. But I will say that this is another reason why community members feel that there is ideologies that run through, whether it's fire department or police department, for this to be somebody that was, a city employee. That is a bit disheartening. And I think that there's a lot of folks out there who are looking for opportunities to build the trust. And this is another example of why it's been hard to do that over the decades.
Right. And I see people, it's interesting. And, I love all of our Converge people. So I don't want nobody to take it the wrong way. But it's interesting because people in our comments are making an equivalation or equivocation, whatever it's called already. Well, he threatened to do this to her and he threatened this. Yeah, like I'm not being cynical at all. I am glad that an arrest was made. This person was making threats against the council member, period. And this is what we got to get used to, just saying period in this city. We don't have to equivocate everything. Yes, this person made a threat, identity theft, all kinds of stuff, everything else. And man, I am glad that an arrest was made, period. But what this has also shown us, period, is that council member Shama Sawant, through her platform, can escalate things to the Seattle Police Department, as what we saw in that case, period. So what we would like to see is for council member Shama Sawant to use her platform as well to address the many unsolved murders that are in District 3, period.
Yeah, I mean, that's enough said right there. I mean, at the end of the day, that is a reason why we elect these officials. It really is to be able to speak for the folks that are within their district. And far too many cases involving Black people. Let's just be very clear here. Far too many cases involving Black people when it comes to homicides have been unsolved. I go all the way back to my boy, Tyrone Love, still unsolved. And at the end of the day, it does feel like, from a community perspective, and just from my perspective, it feels like they're like, well, we can't find anything, we let it go. But that killer is out there on the streets, ultimately. And there are multiple killers that are out there on the streets. No regard for people's lives, no regard for people's children. At the end of the day, they do need to be apprehended.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is we live with killers. See, there's a lot of people in a lot of neighborhoods in Seattle and watching this, they might not have, excuse me, that issue. We really live with killers. All of these homicides here in Seattle. And, another thing is, man, this is a time we need to take our show and this platform to the next level, and all these things that we kind of don't say because, man, we don't want, the larger audience to know and everything else. But it's like, man, this conversation around this crime in our community, a lot of it Black on Black crime and violence that no one wants to speak on. No one wants to speak on, outside of the people who are disrupting violence, the victims, the church, a few people. No one. With all of these 50 homicides in the city of Seattle, a crazy number in all of King County. And man, who's really stepping up as far as is elected? The people with the big voices. And I want to say this, the people with the small voices are doing the work. You find them on the ground, whether it's a Sean Good, or whether it's a Willard Jimerson, or whether it's some of these churches, their role isn't the megaphone. Their role is on the ground. The people who have the biggest voices, these electeds and everything else, they stay quiet. And it's happening. It's only when something is headline grabbing that people get in. You see what I'm saying? It's only like when, okay, if the police kill a Black person, they're running in, which they should. But where are you the rest of the time? Like we were saying the other day, for us, Central District, South Bend, Skyway, Berry and Kent, where our people is at, all of these lives matter to us. Mm-hmm. I know some of y'all, especially you politicians, the only Black lives that matter to you is if a Black life gets killed by the police. but we live in the community. All the lives matter to us. Where you at?
You know what? You're absolutely right. Oh, and one of the things I will say is that we see a lot of activity right when a death happens. Like, oh man, it's in the headlines. You know, all the reporters are coming out, trying to talk to the family. You got people doing this and that, trying to speak to families and try to get the stories. But then the stories die. And at the end of the day, the investigations never should until they are solved, until they can be officially closed by apprehending a suspect. At the end of the day, that is what we're not seeing enough of in our communities. And that is specifically what we're talking about here, that there is a need for our elected officials, those with the larger voices, for our investigative teams in the police department to continue to investigate these cases. Bring us updates of what your activity is at the end of the day. That's one of the transparency issues that we have. We're not hearing enough from anybody who is working on these cases, and elected officials have a large platform to be able to continue to make sure that these cases do see spotlight.
Right, and what you're going, people might think that it's I'm picking on council member Sawant, which I haven't, and actually to this day I have more interviews with council member Sawant than any other elected official, like tons. I've been talking to council member Sawant for years. But the whole point is District 3 is the central district, and that's our district. But the same thing here, you know, for Morales, put it out there. Like, man, you know what I'm saying? Let's use this platform. I mean, even to Seattle School District directors, DeWolf and Director Hersey. Because when there's a murder in the neighborhood, that impacts them school kids as well. Look at whatchamacallit when there were 70 shots fired down there in the South End. You don't think that impacts school kids? So, man, school board directors, city council members, why don't you guys raise your voice and use your platform to see, like, man, how can we get some emphasis and some spotlight on the violence that's happening in our community? So don't nobody got to think that I'm just talking about council member Sawant. So council member Morales, you know, school board director Hersey and DeWolf, council member Zahalai, who's actually been out there on the front edge of all these things. Any elected in the Central District, South End, Skyway, you know what I'm saying? Use your platform. That's all I'm saying. So it ain't no beef or no issue with Sawant. It's just, you know, that's D3. We D3.
Absolutely.
All day. CD
You know
or
what?
CB and D3.
And you know what? It's really a clear cause of action here that Omari is speaking of. And ultimately, we don't get the opportunities. The families do not get the opportunities to say, you know what? Oh, well, you know, it's no longer in the headlines. Nah, they absorb that. They absorb it all the time. So ultimately, it really is on those with the larger voices and larger platforms to step up. Yeah,
100%. Here's another story right here, and this is from King 5. I mean, some of these stories are a bit dated. You might have heard about them, but they've been in the queue, and we don't have some other things to talk about. But the sheriff, the All Lives Splatter, the sheriff detective, King County Sheriff, you know, it's Jay Inslee's cousin or something like that, too.
Wow.
Yeah, so he got fired by the sheriff. You know, he was the one posting up there about All Lives Splatter. And you know what was crazy is because you'll see here in this clip, it's nothing graphic though, but you'll see when this car approaches. I was on the freeway that day. I was there. I was actually with Summer Taylor, Diaz Love, all these guys, TK. I was there on the I-5 and I was reporting and live tweeting when that car came right there on the freeway. It is one of the most horrific things I ever witnessed in my life. And, you know, listening to the little voice that day, the little voice was like, man, don't live stream. Let's just do some live tweeting. And I'm so glad because at that point, you know, the audience who was looking at those streams was massive. And it was such a traumatizing thing to see. Here's a short clip right here from King 5.
After making controversial social media posts, a King County detective has been fired. Sheriff Mitzi Johanknick terminated former detective Michael Brown today after a months-long investigation. We've decided not to show the posts because of their graphic and insensitive nature. The sheriff's office was flooded with complaints after he posted a meme about running over protesters. The posts came just after Black Lives Matter demonstrators were hit on Interstate 5 back in July. One person was killed, another seriously injured. The interstate shut down at the time. The driver went through a barricade. Sheriff Johanknick said Brown's posts, quote, endorsed and advocated unnecessary excessive use of force and violence and demonstrated extreme indifference to life and racial equity. Brown can challenge his termination through a union grievance procedure.
right? And man, and you know, he also made some comments about Lorenzo Anderson as well. It was like, oh, maybe they should rename the park from Cal Anderson to Lorenzo Anderson. And you know, when this first came out, and I heard that, and I was like, oh, dude, you know what I'm saying? He was talking about Lorenzo Anderson, and we're so close. We're so close. We was there when Lorenzo Anderson was murdered. There on the freeway when Summer Taylor was murdered, and Diaz Love, like, you know, life-changing injuries for them. And I was like, I wonder if this guy would have the courage to say them same things to Donita eye to eye about her son. You know, social media is the internet. Everybody brave on the internet. I wonder if that detective would have had the courage to look Donita in the eye and be like, hey, maybe we should change the park and name it after your son.
You know what? It's the insensitivity. Ultimately, it's so much of it, man. And this is why when we're saying, like, these are people that are supposed to be protecting us. At the end of the day, there is a huge, huge barrier to trust when we find out that these are the folks that are behind certain things. It's unfortunate. It's beyond unfortunate. And people lost their lives. You know, shout out to Summer Taylor's family. Shout out to Lorenzo Anderson's family. We love y'all ultimately because we know what you guys are dealing with right now. We deal with it too. We suffer these losses alongside you because we are really of community. We're in the community. We grew up near you. Donita knows something. So ultimately, this is another, I'm glad that they fired him. It's unfortunate that, you know, that it had to be somebody who was supposed to be protecting us, making these kinds of slurs.
Yeah, but it also makes you wonder. I mean, and this is the thing where people are like the concern they have about like these officers and everything else. This is why for years, this guy was an investigator on different things and it's whatever. Man, what bias did he bring into different situations? What level of insensitivity did he bring in a situation? And, you know, I mean, I can't put two next to each other, so I'll button that up. But I do want to go back to our original, these shootings in the Central District real quick. So I'm putting a button on this with the sheriff, Mike Brown, is that the conversation I've been having with people in the Central District about how we got the word out there that it was a random act of violence and the whole city shifted. Literally, we saw it. The whole city shifted. News stories and this and that and everything else. And people went from being quiet to talking about how they can donate. And we'll talk about that here in a bit. Is how many times was the original narrative, oh, we think it might have been gang related or we think it might have been whatever. And while the media was still on the story, which usually isn't wrong, the narrative was never updated. Mm-hmm. And by the time it comes out, the media don't care because 2, 3, 4 other people done been murdered. You see, you see what I'm saying? Look how many people. See, we caught this one. If Converge Media hadn't said nothing, it would have been all the way until an investigation update or whatever. And the media in Seattle would have moved on because it's the news cycle. They just would have moved on. And these families all would have been stuck sitting here with people thinking that it was what it wasn't. How many times, Trade Holiday, has that happened in our community?
You know what? Probably way too many times to count, to be honest with you all. And this is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the thoroughness of investigations that we see in the Central District and South End. They're not that thorough. Let's just put it out there. They have not been. The history of all of the deaths that we see when it becomes black on black crime, unfortunately, if they can't get the perpetrator, you know, in a year or whatever, it just dies out, man. It's on us to continue to remember those who have been lost. It is things that we absorb in the community because ultimately the ideas around misinterpretation with the first story that pops out, there's not normally never enough information to go with that rush of the story just to be the first to report on it. We talked about this before, and this is just one case we were able to catch. But you are absolutely right, Omari. I believe there's countless that have not been caught. And again, I'll say this. This is another importance and example of community media that is really rooted on the ground, speaking to people, of the people, in community. That is why it's so important, because we want to be able to make sure real stories are being told here, and that it's not the sensationalizing story that's going to bring us more and more views. Yeah,
well, and I agree with you, Trayana. And, like I said, there's probably quite a few. I mean, and people think about that. You live with that. Your family lives with that. And for maybe a lot of people, you might not understand how important and really how groundbreaking this was last week, to be able to push for that statement, to say that, man, this was a random act of violence, because and we see it here. The whole city, as far as media, has changed. It is a good thing. Like I said, I'm not one of them people who's like, you should do this, damn you, and then you do it, and you did it, damn you. This is a good thing that, people are out there and they're like, hey, what's going on? And one of the vigils, who can we talk to? Where's the family? How can we do this and that? And that's how it should be. But it took that change in narrative. When the narrative around this case was that, well, they might have known each other. And that was an initial investigation by SPD. I think the initial detectives or whoever was investigating went there. They said the dude was yelling at the car. Somebody might have been like, oh, he might have known each other. It was an initial investigation. But after that, they knew kind of soon after that, like, oh, okay, they didn't know each other. But when this was still considered that they might have known each other, ain't nobody really care.
Right.
Like, nobody really cared. When it was like, oh, they might have known each other. So just imagine, that's just changing something, one sentence. No random act of violence. This is what we deal with in our community. So, I mean, this is just, some spotlight. We're giving you a peephole view into the community. You see what I'm saying? Because most times people die and nobody cares. Something happens in the CD, nobody really cares. Everybody covered a little bit, but they care. But just that change in the narrative, and we see that it's a change in the city. We see it's a change in people's hearts. We see it's a change in people coming out, and there's so many different things. It's important. And like I said, who knows how many times murders in our community have just been buried in the narrative.
I'll say this too. You know who always cares? The families of those who have been lost.
Amen.
Period, point blank. And those are the people that's why I'm here. I'm on this platform to really always be trying to elevate those voices. You know what I'm saying? Omari's here because ultimately that we understood that there's a lot of news medias out there. There's a lot. But what we're doing and what we're trying to bring here is that perspective of those who will always care. When it is black on black crime, Amen. They're the ones dealing with it in the end. And I just thinking about my boy Tyrone Love. I grew up with him. And the saddest part about that is that his mama had to die not knowing who killed her son. But again, did the media report on that? Did the media want to do any kind of update? Was the investigators reaching out and trying to make sure that people were informed? No, they weren't, man.
I will say this. I agree with you that the majority know. But I will say this, to show money. Shamari Stone, he's out. I think he's with NBC in Washington, D.C. right now. And it was 2 years after the murder of Tyrone Love and the Silent War campaign. And, they were trying to be able to raise some awareness there on Cherry. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Initially, they thought it was gang violence because the murder occurred right there on Cherry. And it was crazy. I just saw Tyrone not 20 minutes before he got murdered. I saw him in downtown. And at the time I was staying right there on Cherry. And it was crazy because I was like, man, there's so many police down the street. Man, maybe somebody got killed. And then the next morning, all these messages like, hey, man, has anybody heard from Tyrone? Has anybody heard from Tyrone? And then I jumped back in the chat. I was like, I ain't heard from him, but yo, there was hella police on Cherry last night. It turns out that was him who got murdered.
And you know what? Again, back then, it was the community that had to make that distinction because Tyrone was never in a gang. He was never that type of person. It was people that knew him that had to come out. People asked me, I had to speak up. At the end of the day, it was so many people that knew and loved Tyrone that were able to come to his defense and say right away, let's squash any ideas that this was gang on gang related, because he was never affiliated in that way, always had love for the people.
Whew, my friend. It's a lot of stuff. Let's switch gears here quickly. This is Tina Hendricks. You know, I went to a prom with Tina Hendricks. Jimi Hendrix's niece, decades ago at this point. Written Music School, founded by Jimi Hendrix's niece, can continue to use the Hendrix name, court says. A written music program, this is by Michael Reitmelder. A written music program working at-risk youth have been removed from a long-running legal feud between members of the Jimi Hendrix family, meaning the Hendrix Music Academy can continue to use the Hendrix name. This is wild. We're gonna have Tina on later on this week, but this whole thing with the Hendrix name, she got sued. They did a 50-year anniversary thing. They got sued off of that. Like her brother, her dad, Leon, which is Jimmy's brother, is in all this litigation. And like basically what happened is that Jimmy's adopted sister, Janie, has like the whole estate. And so Tina's sitting here trying to run this music program for at-risk youth. Got hit with a federal lawsuit, some everything else. But a judge has ruled on this. And so good for Tina Hendricks and good for the Hendrix Music Academy.
Yeah. I mean, they've been doing great work out there. Shout out to you, Tina, and to all of your family. To be honest, I am so glad that we'll be able to have Tina on to celebrate this victory, because we know you've just been wanting to do great work in the honor of your uncle, Sir Jimi Hendrix. And honestly, many youth have been serviced through your music program. So I'm just delighted to know that it will be able to continue in the same legacy that you started it in.
All right. This article is out, and it's actually the interview is up on our IG, but I mean, it was only 50 seconds long here, but so we'll play this. I talked to Carolyn Bick the other day from the South Seattle Emerald, and what she said is that even though the King County Jail has all these COVID restrictions and they're not supposed to accept people with low-level crimes that aren't I don't know, I guess you consider dangerous to put in jail, they're supposed to reject them, just issue them a court date. Carolyn Bick put out an article saying that SPD was pressuring the sheriff who runs the jail to book in protesters who were like chalking, the people who were chalking, the people who were doing this and that. But I'll play this. Top SPD officials asked King County jail officials to override COVID restrictions and book nonviolent protesters. They complied. Carolyn Bick, you wrote it. Tell us all about it.
All right. So the long story short is that in March of 2020, the King County Jail, in a press release, put out a series of booking restrictions in order to mitigate COVID-19, the disease caused by the novel coronavirus. And the top SPD officials, who we don't know who they are, have been asking jail officials on more than one occasion to essentially override those protocols to book nonviolent protesters and protesters who don't appear to present an immediate threat to the public.
Yeah, so that's in South Seattle Emerald, Carolyn Bick. It's also the full interviews up there on our Instagram. Man, Bick stays digging in these police stories. Like, it's two things Carolyn Bick is on, and that's COVID and like police. There's nothing else.
Well, the thing is that shout out to the work of Carolyn Bick and to Carolyn Bick herself, or honestly, it is a beautiful thing to actually have somebody that is continuing to dig deep like that, because that's how we actually understand a lot of the nuance that isn't normally reported at the top level of cases. So I'm just glad to hear this, honestly, that it's coming out, because I've talked to protesters who were freed. At the end of the day, they were also the ones that were saying, police are pressing for us to be locked up. And so to be able to hear it now from a a reporter's perspective is another way that brings some more light to this issue. Oh, it's one of those things that, you know, we see our Seattle Police Department, again, pressing for something that most would think is, you know, ridiculous.
Right. And also want to thank Sean Good there in the comments. He put in an article about Tyrone Love. You know, we started talking about Tyrone and someone asked like, who is Tyrone Love? Thank you, Sean Good. Man, of course, you know, it's been all these years and he's still missed. One thing that I did want to bring up here, and you know what, we're taking recommendations from you, our viewing audience. I know you guys really care about what we do here at Converge, and it's unfortunate. And it's crazy that it's unfortunate that we've had like a long-standing policy of not putting up like GoFundMe's and things like that, because in our community, everybody's in crisis. You get what I'm saying? And so people in the best way, they hit me and they were like, yo, can you put up this GoFundMe? You know what I'm saying? Around the tragedy up there at NAM. And it's like, I got 6 or 7, you know what I'm saying, other GoFundMe. So what I want our viewing audience to do is either in the comments or email, tell us what nonprofit should Converge Media partner with? Because unfortunately in our community, there's always people in crisis. And, you know, we would like to be able to reach out to the community and be able to get a fund. And then from that fund, make a donation. So as opposed to putting up individual GoFundMe's or Cash Apps or this and that, we'd like to partner with a nonprofit that you guys know and trust and love, and they would manage that fund. And we can use our media platform to encourage people to donate. And then we have a resource there to be able to give to people in crisis in our community. And I think that's a better approach for us because, like I said, unfortunately, there's so many people in crisis in our community. So, man, let us know what nonprofit should Converge partner with to be able to develop this community relief fund.
I love that. And, you know, again, it just showcases the heart of those of us who are really rooted into the community. I know that there's so many amazing relief funds out there. There's been COVID relief, but I love the intentionality of crisis relief because ultimately we here in the news world are always reporting on these crises as they pop up, as they come up. We want to follow them to make sure that we're providing updates to the audience and to our community about a lot of these cases. So I love that approach. Oh, it's a great way to go.
Fantastic. Well, so we got a few more things. Yo, this is a wild one right here. Let me see. Mercer Island. Did you see what they're talking about on Mercer Island? Mm-mm. Let me dig this one. You know, this goes to this issue of homelessness, though, right? And we always, you know, at first when you think of homelessness in Seattle, you think of like Seattle people, maybe people you went to high school with or something like that, homeless. But, you know, when you talk to a lot of homeless advocates, you find that a lot of the homeless that are in Seattle aren't necessarily from Seattle. They've come to Seattle for the resources that Seattle has. And that's also a reason why that people keep, like, if there was no resources here, then I don't think that, you know, a lot of people would keep coming. But, you know, we're a city with a big heart. There's a lot of resources here. This is from the Seattle Times. This is proposal that would ban homeless camping stirs debate on Mercer Island. Mercer Island City Council members are debating an ordinance that would prohibit camping on all public property on the island seen here. And they were like, man, they're ready to send them somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? And we already know where the somewhere else is. The somewhere else is the 2 miles or less, or whatever it is, between the city of Mercer Island and the city of Seattle. It says here, city officials say the ordinance is aimed at helping those who are living outdoors or in their cars, as well as addressing residents' concerns about safety. But an organized group of Mercer Island residents and the ACLU of Washington say they're concerned the proposal criminalizes homelessness on the largely wealthy island without addressing homelessness underlying causes. And you know another thing about this, when you read this article, a good article here by Paige Cornwell at the Seattle Times, go check it out. When you read the article, once again, the police are the first line of defense. Because it's like, oh, well, the police are interacting with these people, the police are interacting with those people. And it's funny how when it comes to homelessness, this Mercer Island is a wealthy city. You know, we got a lot of viewers from Mercer Island, so it'd be good to hear from you guys as to, to your position out there. But the first thing they talk about is the police interaction with homelessness. And it's like the police, I don't think necessarily are ever the first response. But yeah, the city council there, they voted, hold on, let me see, 6-1. Under the proposed ordinance, violations would be a misdemeanor offense, subject to fines up to $1,000 and 90 days in jail. At January city council meeting, council members voted 6-1 to move the ordinance forward for adoption, with council member Craig Reynolds the sole no. Just putting this headline back up here. Proposal that would ban homelessness camping stirs debate on Mercer Island. Trey Holiday?
This is so unfortunate. First of all, Mercer Island, you guys need to find a real way to deal with your homelessness issue. By sitting here saying that folks that are homeless are going to receive a fine up to $1,000. They're homeless. Like what? They're houseless. Why in the world would that be the way to deal with it? I'm sorry. This one right here really gets under my skin a bit, because we are always talking about issues within the city of Seattle. But you have to understand that if cities took care of their people, if we had more of an opportunity to build trust between the classes, because this is a class issue. It goes beyond race or creed or anything. This is a class issue. And when you have people that can no longer afford to stay in their housing, can no longer afford to be housed, ultimately, there needs to be a sense of care that is given to these folks. You got to reach your arms out. In a city like Mercer Island, with all the money y'all have, the fact that y'all haven't thought about some type of community roots way to deal with your homeless population, that you would sit up and want to find them when they're already dealing with so many other things coming down on them and barriers that have prevented them from having secure, sustainable housing. That is a real mark on you guys, in my opinion. It's unfortunate. Right.
And addressing a few things here in the comments. This is good. People are in the comments. And today, usually I'm all about camera protocol, so I never see the comments. All you is like, you need to look up here. Okay, so first back to our other thing here about nonprofit to partner with. We want to partner with a nonprofit, not for like tax write-off or something like that. It's because we don't know how to manage all of that. We're a media company. So we want other people, we want to partner with somebody who can manage getting money out and resources out to families in need. Like we're smart enough to know what we don't know. And what we don't know is that world. And so it's like, yeah, we're looking for somebody who we can, compile resources to, and they know how to do outreach. They know how to be like, hey, is this what you need? Let me give you these funds or whatever. And I think most people aren't giving for a tax write-off. We say nonprofit because usually nonprofits are the people who actually have the expertise in that. For-profit companies don't have expertise in really reaching out to community members. What do you need? How do what I'm saying? That's not the world for-profit companies are in. So that's that. 2, and it's about this homelessness issue. We got lots of homeless advocates that are on here. What I'm saying is this: in our municipality, these 88 square miles, I'm not talking about King County, I am talking about the city of Seattle, is that people do come to the city. And I don't think, somebody said it's a us versus them mentality. I don't subscribe to none of that. I think that it's like, man, if the resource is here, who's not going towards the resource? That's what you're supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's real. What's unfortunate, the bigger thing is that when Executive Constantine, we were trying to go a regional approach for homelessness, like they're trying to go with a regional approach to gun violence. And a lot of local cities opted out. You try to do like a tax increase. They're like, nah, Dow, we go tax ourselves. You know what I'm saying? You see cities like Renton past the slow over here. We're like, man, a shelter can't be this far from this and everything else. Seattle, the only city that's really like, you know what I'm saying? Okay, well, man, how can we keep our hands and our hearts open but still address this at the same time? Other cities are just canceling. You talk about cancel culture. So a lot of other cities just canceling homelessness. Like, yeah, it don't exist.
These are people. These are people's families. They sometimes have children. sleeping in their cars. I am appalled at all of the cities who are not looking at this issue as something that is serious and something that they need to strap on their backs to find resolution for. I'm appalled, y'all. It's not a us versus them mentality, but every city needs to be caring for its citizens. Period. The fact that all of a sudden now, oh, they're homeless. You know what? Hey, we got to write them off. Hey, we can't have you guys over here. We can't have you in public spaces. We can't have you in your cars over here. That regulation is ridiculous, especially right now in 2021. I mean, come on, let's wake up as a collective effort here. It's unfortunate that Dow Constantine was not able to do something that has a regional effect, because that is what is needed right now. We see that Washington State, Seattle is one of the fastest growing cities, but it expands out. We talk about the gentrification that happened here in the CD, in the South End. All of those families, my family included, had to move all the way to South King County, to a city Federal Way. We did not know, but ultimately it is up to the cities to care for their people. And for you guys to not want to care, that right there is what's got me hot right now. Man, it's about to turn into a fired up Tuesday.
Fired up Tuesday
I'm telling you, this right here is so appalling. Do you understand what people go through to even get to a sense of homelessness? It's not always that they're on drugs or that they're just desolate or that they refuse to work. That is not what we're talking about here. To none of you cities who don't want to care for your homeless population. At the end of the day, we're talking about people that are paycheck to paycheck. We're talking about people that are trying to strap their bootstraps up like America told them they could. But for some odd reason, there's way too many barriers, way too many glass ceilings. They have not been able to see the wealth like some of you have. And ultimately, it is unfortunate that you would turn your humanity off when you're talking about those who are houseless. These are people that are trying to make it. Majority of the time, they are not just over here drug addicts and this and that. You know, people have all of these disillusions about who the homeless population is. Get out there and volunteer. You'll find out that there's some real stories behind a lot of these people not being able to be housed. And most of it is because of the profit of the city. All of this profiteering happening with regard to, oh, we need to make money here, make money there. That is why many of these people are houseless.
All right, Trey Holiday, fired up Tuesday. Look, you're getting an applause in the studio and everything. I will say this is that, you know, and so some of the comments there, people are like, oh, well, man, you know, it's great to be homeless and shit. No, man, ain't nobody. It's just a bad situation. Like, I mean, we don't have to be funny about it. It's a bad situation. But you know what? What other city here in our county do you really get people, you know, who a Trey Holiday? You see what I'm saying? And I mean, and the other thing is I really want to address, you really hit a good point here. Do you know how many working poor are homeless? See, you know what? One thing that's happened is people have been able to run with this narrative. We talk about narratives. And you know what? Although we were able to change the narrative around that shooting in the Central District in one day, the narrative around homelessness, my friend, unfortunately, it might take years to change in this city. People, when you talk about homelessness, that it's already now, oh, they must be on drugs. They you know what I'm saying? They must be this. Do you know how many people are the working poor on the real? Do you know how many people go to the actual is crazy? Because me and my son were volunteering at some of the soup kitchens, and you'll find that it was like somebody's like, man, I had a decision. I could either buy dinner or paid, you know, the fare to go to work. And so, you know, I paid my bus fare and I'm coming here to be able to eat my dinner. This is working poor that's out there. How many people are living in their car? How many people are living on the couches? And some of you guys, you might not even realize it because, you know, it hasn't dawned on you. But your buddy that's been staying on the couch for the last 3 months, he's really homeless too. He's just chilling on your couch. You see what I'm saying? And so you haven't thought of him in that way. It's like, oh man, you know, that's Bob. He just hangs out on the couch. It's all good. He's homeless too. And so people who sit here want to be like, oh, the homeless are just whatever. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? I challenge you, dig a little deeper. It's so many layers to this issue. And like I said, Mercer Island, oh no, it's a bit disappointing to see that.
It's extremely disappointing. Oh, and I'm rocking over here because I'm just trying to contain my energy a little bit, because the truth of the matter is that I experienced homelessness myself. And I'm just a mom working. A situation happened. They had to kick me out of my apartment. I had to figure out what I was going to do. I had to figure out what I was going to do, man. And I found myself in these same positions. I'm there trying to wash clothes with my kids. I'm telling you, you don't know until you hit that point. So the fact that people have no care for those who are trying to make it, that is where I have a real problem right now, because ultimately we need to turn our sense of humanity up. The fact that we have been driven to be individualistic and selfish and only thinking about ourselves and, all of us, so many of us on survivor mode. At the end of the day, you guys got to stop this, man. And you guys got to care about people, because I've been there. I've been there eating with people. We were making oatmeal, making mac and cheese. Thank God to those who gave donations so that certain shelters and day shelters could even be in operation. Thank God to those people, because they are helping people that need that service on a daily basis. We're talking about how cold it is right here on these streets. Man, you can't have enough blankets in your car to take care of yourself or your children when you're dealing with freezing degree temperatures. I'm just saying, man, you don't know about nothing until you've been there. And that was a huge wake up call for me. And I'm telling you, to all of you who have now made it, you think you made it, man, give some time, man, give some volunteer hours to these shelters, give some volunteer hours to a food bank. You will see that then it is working everyday people trying to make it that have had to be there, man. And I know because I've been there.
Well, I don't think there's any denying that. Yeah. And, again, I really want to address this. There's in the commentary, I think it's Ayan's like, man, just put out these GoFundMes and everything else. I don't think you understand how much crisis our community is in. Do you know how many? I get 10, 15 of them every day. So now which one do I put first? Because Omari put it first. That means that must be Omari's highest priority. But maybe it's not. Do I randomize them? What do I do? You tell me. Because, it's different if our community was just hit by one crisis. And it's like, oh, it's whatever. But the thing is we're constantly, and this is what it is, we're constantly under a crisis. Constantly. So instead of just ignoring, I'm like, okay, man, let's find a way. You see what I'm saying? And my Lion Trey holiday is a constant crisis.
It really is. And this is part of it. And I understand, like, in terms of, hey, as a media company, hey, just put them out there. But ultimately, there's a better way to do it. And there's a way to combine a lot of these issues and these efforts. We need to be able to have a way that we combine them. And I think that there's a local platform called Chip In. Maybe that's who we need to partner with, because ultimately Gerald Smiley out there created Chip In. And basically, it is a way to start really elevating these crises and these campaigns for money for folks to be able to donate at the individual level. And that is what a lot of folks need right now. They really need the opportunity to combine them. So I understand where you're going there, that trying to randomize it or decide which ones get featured that gets harder.
Right. And this is the thing is, and it's unfortunate. And even, you know what I'm saying? Even my time, we've been at this now, broadcasting one way or another for almost 2 years, whether it was live right now, like the morning update show, or putting our podcasts out there, whatever. This is a community that has consistently been in crisis 100%, and we need to find a better way. And that's why I'm challenging our viewers and everybody else. How can Converge Media be able to best use our platform to be able to funnel resources to victims and things like that, keeping in mind that there's a lot of people that are impacted. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot. There is a lot in our community, whether it's murder or the house burned down or this and that, or just violent assault. Man, shit, it's a lot. Sorry. And by the way, my mama got on my head. Whew, man, you wouldn't believe, man,
too much.
My mama don't like me to say how old she is on air, but it is, she said, son, I'm only going to tell you one more time. You keep going on air and you keep using them words, me and you gonna have a problem. Yes, ma'am. So sorry, Mom. Hey, look, I got one or two more things here. I think we're over time, but I got one or two more things, and this one here is important. This is a loss to our community, especially for sports fans here. Let me find it in here. Okay, got it. Loss of Chris Brandon. aka Sonic Sky, leaves a big hole in Seattle sports fandom. This is from the Seattle Times, and it's by Matt Calkins. So it's like last Thursday, Christopher Brandon, known to the Puget Sound region as Sonic Sky, died at age 47. His heart failed him. As a result, Seattle's heart sank. Though he resided in Tacoma, Brandon was most recognizable sports fan in the Emerald City. With a 6'5" frame, signature afro, and Supersonics garb, he was impossible to miss when he walked the streets or attended a rally.
Sending love to the family. Honestly, I always talk about the families because I know, like, hey, they're the ones that are continuing on. And to all of those, our beloved Sonics, man. At the end of the day, if you guys saw Sonics guy out there, you know exactly who he is. And so, just sending a big love because it is a huge loss for us, man. I still miss the Sonics, so it's a touchy subject for me.
Nikki, can you look up Chipped In? Someone's asking. We'll see if we can get it in or not. Yeah. One other thing here. There's actually some good news. This is from the Capitol Hill Times. I'm sorry, CapitolHillSeattle.com, Capitol Hill Seattle blog. You know, when I was a kid, though, I'll just share this with the audience. I used to be a paper boy. I was a paper boy for the Seattle Times and the Capitol Hill Times at the time. And my paper route was basically from on 19th Avenue from Mount Zion to St. Joe's, you know, right across Meeting Middle School, Capitol Hill, everything. That was my route. So I used to deliver the Seattle Times, the Capitol Hill Times. And on Sunday, they used to have what was called the Bulldog. And the Bulldog was the Times and the PI Sunday paper. It was a massive paper. Hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, man, I was a young dude out there. Yeah, my paper route, man. Come on. We done done some of everything in this city. And that's why I'm saying I love that we have a history here. Let me see if I can find this one. No. Oh, here it is. There we go. Hope to help address displacement in the Central District. Mount Zion's affordable senior housing project taking shape on 19th Avenue. The project is on 19th, just north of Madison. It's being developed by Mount Zion Housing Development, the housing arm of the nearby Mount Zion Baptist Church. The property is currently occupied by the Prince Arms Apartments on a lot that is shaped roughly like a triangle, yada, yada. Basically, Mount Zion, they're getting going with this, man. And, you know, we talked to Emily Alvarado from the Director of Housing. This is one of the projects that the taxpayers of the city of Seattle have put money into.
You know what? And shout out for that investment because it is so needed. We do not have enough senior housing in the Central District area, Capitol Hill area. So I love that this is going on. Shout out to all those from Mount Zion that said, we need to make an investment in this. I agree with you 100%. And I do think that when it comes to housing, the director, Emily Alvarado over at Office of Housing, is looking at a wide range of ways to diversify housing because that's really what the city needs right now is diverse housing. So I love hearing that this one will be dedicated to our seniors and our elders.
All right, we're over time. And that's become a habit this week, but we gotta stop making that. We got a lot to say though. I don't know if this show should actually start earlier or end later, or we got whatever into it. Do want to put this back up here. Let me find it real quick. Again, reminder. So this is tonight at 6:00 at Jimi Hendrix Park. It's community candlelight vigil, the Northwest African American Museum. And, you know, it was actually, we're going there. It was actually NAM, it was the NAM parking lot right there where all of this occurred. So that's tonight at 6:00 at Jimi Hendrix Park.
Yeah, again, another way that community shows up, man, for community because the love is real. And so I just love that this is happening. Please be there if you can. I know I'm going to try to be there if I can attend.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll be streaming. We're gonna try to figure it out. We had another obligation today, but when community calls and we can make it, so we're gonna figure that out. Any last words for today, Trey Holiday?
Man, make it a great day. And I'm just going to encourage people in these cities. That homelessness issue has got me. I'm just
fired
encouraged.
up out here,
Man,
Trey.
I'm just saying.
You fired up.
I'm encouraging people to do more, research it, figure out ways that you can impact your city council if they're not looking at homeless and houseless families as an important issue to find real resolution about, not just pushing them out and not
sending
just
them to Seattle ain't the answer.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what we see. People are like, yeah, let's just send everybody to Seattle, and I think that's not necessarily an answer either. That's why we really do need a regional approach here when we talk about homelessness. Oh, by the way, some of you guys might have noticed that we've got a replay. The morning show actually replays now in the evenings. What time is the replay, Nikki? The replay 6. That looks like the number 6 to me. So 6 o'clock in the evenings. You can also catch the morning update show. So we're being restreamed, as they say, at 6 o'clock, and so we'll be doing that. So we're gonna be out there tonight at the vigil and at Jimi Hendrix Park. Either we'll be live streaming or live tweeting, or we might just be present. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it isn't all about streaming and tweeting. It's just being present in the moment. We'll figure it out when we get there. Want to remind everybody, as usual, man, go forward in your purpose, go forward in your humanity, and until tomorrow at 11 a.m. Peace.
Lift every voice and sing till earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day.